We Want the Gold is finally here. Yes, I've got the first batch of printed copies hot off the press. Now, where better to give it its first live outing than in Innsmouth? Yes, today on Dragon's Teeth, we're taking a look at the Innsmouth Literary Festival 25. Hi, I'm Rob Poyton. Thanks for joining me today. And yes, we're pretty much fresh, if that's the word, fresh back from the Innsmouth Literary Festival 2025, which took place at our usual venue, the King's House Centre in Bedford. And before I do anything else, I want to say a huge thanks to everyone who came along, all our attendees, to our authors, our guests, our panelists, our traders, our games people, and everyone who helped out on the day. Well, I say the day, but we had a quiz night on the Friday evening at a local pub, and we had Innsmouth After Dark, of course, with some really excellent live performances. I have put a highlight reel up on the Innsmouth Book Club YouTube channel, so I'll pop a link to that in the show notes below. Now, if you've been following the channel, you will know that I've been readying the Innsmouth build just for this occasion, and I'm pleased to say that the We Want the Gold rulebooks turned up just in time. We cut it really fine, of course, because these arrived about 3 days before the event, so not really even had time to look through them before we were taking the game to the ILF and giving it its first live run, which I'm happy to say went very well. So I'll be talking about that in a little bit. I'll give a full report on the game that we ran. But first of all, I have some other news. Again, if you've been following the channel over the last 6 months or so, you'll know that I have had considerable problems with Facebook. Some other social media accounts as well, but in particular Facebook. Long story short, all my profiles were deleted. Any new profiles or accounts I tried to create were deleted. Everything that I've put up on Facebook over the last, I don't know, what's it got to be, 10, 15 years or something, everything has gone. And that occurred just as we were starting our main marketing push for the ILF. So to say it was a pain in the arse would be an understatement. Anyway, I'm back on Facebook now. I managed to get a profile accepted as Bob Innsmouth, funnily enough. So I am slowly starting to connect with people again, join groups, and all that kind of thing. Here's the thing though, I no longer trust Facebook. I no longer trust that if I'm going to set up a Facebook group for anything, and I'm going to pull in, let's be optimistic, 500 plus members, that might all not just disappear again. I'm still going to use Facebook. I'm going to make announcements on there. I'll make posts about what's going on, the podcast, put my video clips up and everything else. But in terms of interaction with other people, I've set up the Innsmouth forum. This is an old-fashioned style forum board, so it's very easy to navigate. You can see the headings for the various areas of discussion. You can go into those and you'll have all the threads for your particular topics. Because another thing I'm finding with Facebook or Discord or WhatsApp, etc., is everything, unless you read it straight away, is pretty much gone. So, old school, back to the forum. You can go on, there's the heading, there's the thread. You can see everything relating to your post within that thread, and so on and so on. So here's the big favour I'm asking to all of my viewers, to all of the people who listen to our podcast, our patrons and everyone else. Please do sign up for the forum. Even if you just make one post, even if you just sign up and read it, that will really help the forum grow. And that is where all the main discussion is going to be about the various projects, whether that's gaming with We Want the Gold or Call of Cthulhu or RPGs, whether it's podcasts such as our own, Innsmouth Book Club, Strange Shadows, or other podcasts as well. It's all going to be on there. So, That's that out the way. Let's take a look at Innsmouth. The Innsmouth build was finished in time. I still needed a couple of extra figures, thanks to Matt for bringing those down. But the table was there, and I was very pleased with the way it turned out. Of course, we'd had a trial run down at Bedford Gladiators before, so I was confident. And with the bus in place, it drew a lot of good comments, let's say that. Incidentally, by the way, another thing that was very nice at the ILF was the number of people who came up and said they enjoyed the podcast and or they enjoyed Dragon's Teeth YouTube channel as well. That was really nice to hear. So it's nice to know that people are out there enjoying my ramblings and the stuff that we're putting out. Thank you. So we had the table laid out. I had two scenarios in mind. The first was going to be a sort of stop the ritual, and the second was going to be escape from Innsmouth, which would involve the bus. Unfortunately, as it panned out, we didn't get time to do the second one. There was so much going on during the day. In fact, we're going to streamline the program a little bit next year to allow a little bit more space for gaming and other things. But I did get a group of enthusiasts to play the first scenario. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get everyone's names, and I'm sure the people did tell me, but, you know, my head's like this, ILF, so I do apologise for that. However, we had Uric playing the deep ones. We had David playing the locals. We had Rachel playing the ghoul cult members. We had two chaps playing the halfling thieves, the sneaky finders. And we had another chap playing the monster hunters. So bear in mind, none of these people have played We Want the Gold before. In fact, Rachel said she'd never played a tabletop game before. She'd played RPG, but had never tried tabletop. And I explained that with We Want the Gold, it's tabletop, but with a lot of RPG elements. So she took to it very quickly. And of course, because this was a drop-in game, we only had like an hour. I'd already pre-rolled the characters, created everything up. All the factions were ready there. And I gave each faction 4 members rather than the usual 5, just to shorten the time a little. The first thing I was absolutely delighted with was how everyone very quickly got into the spirit of the game. The first note was passed halfway through turn 1, I think. So we started getting this interplay between the various factions straight away. In fact, this led to a very funny exchange, which I'll mention at the end. So the deep ones started at one side of the board. They were making their way into town along the main street quite confidently, but then they did have a huge 8-foot tall deep one with a trident carrying the chest of gold under his arm. So they had reason to be confident. The monster hunters were a little more cautious. They came creeping in alongside the cemetery. The ghoul cult were very confident. They come straight in. They began searching houses and doing things to sheep. Yes, I'll explain that in a little bit as well. They very quickly ran into the locals, and a bit of an argument ensued there. So we had some melee going on quite early on between the ghoul cult and the locals. The halflings, of course, were sneaking round the alleyways, and then they spotted the big deep one, and more importantly, they spotted that big chest of gold under his arm. So they started lining up on the deep ones, and they also brought their druid up as well, because he had a very interesting spell up his halfling sleeve. So we had that fight going on between the locals and the ghoul cult. One of the cult members managed to slip around and made his way into the Gilman Hotel, where he did find the book, De Vimis Mysterious, with a little bit of searching. Took a couple of turns, but he got the book. So the ghoul cult definitely got one of their objectives. Everything else started happening in the centre. The deep ones met up with the locals. Old Man Marsh was given his chest of gold, but then promptly had to put it down as the monster hunters came in from one side and the halflings came in from the other. So we ended up with a big punch-up in the middle of the town. Just what we were looking for. As all this was developing, by about the 3rd or 4th turn, the Deep One priest popped up on the roof of the Esoteric Order of Dagon, took a look round, He'd finished casting his ritual. He was just waiting for the star spawn to appear. As he looked round, he noticed the ghoul cultists attacking members of his congregation. Outrageous. So he unleashed his main spell, the Fist of Hydra. And I think this was my favourite part of the scenario. There was one ghoul cultist fighting the locals. He was down to 2 hit points. I say he, it could have been a she or an it or a they, because no one knew, right, with these strange robes they were wearing. Anyway, this individual had 2 hit points. The High Priest successfully cast that spell. A huge blast of Deep One power came down and did 3d10's worth of damage on the cultist. I think it came to something like 27 points of damage to a creature that only had 2 points left. So we decided that ghoul cult member just simply exploded. There was very little left. A couple of scraps of cloak maybe floating down. So a little bit of overkill perhaps. I may look at adjusting the damage on that spell, but it was highly amusing. Old man Marsh had similar spells, and perhaps having seen this, he thought, right, I'm going to get involved. So he threw one of his spells at the monster hunters. I think it was Professor Van Halen, but Van Halen's a wily old cove. He saw the spell being prepared, so he got a dodge roll, and he succeeded in dodging out the way, and that blast whistled harmlessly past him. Now, his friend the cleric, having seen this, thought, right, I'm going to smite thee with furious vengeance. The cleric now cast his spell at Old Man Marsh, again got a very successful roll, and well, let's just say that all that was left of Old Man Marsh was a pair of smoking boots and a big chest of gold. This is where the halflings saw their chance. They'd engaged one of the deep ones. This gave one of their members, Albert, who had the assassin trait, gave him the chance to sneak round the back and get a full damage attack in on the rear with 2 daggers. That took care of another deep one. The big deep one, meanwhile, had charged in with his trident, charged the monster hunters, rolled a 1, tripped over his own trident, fell over, and was laying face down on the ground while the monster hunters closed in for attack. This is where the druid stepped in. Basil, the halfling druid, he cast his stone to mud spell on this mass little melee going on, and about half the figures on the board were suddenly enveloped in this sticky, glutinous, stinking Innsmouth mud. That, of course, left the chest of gold unattended. Thank you very much. Now, the scenario pretty much ended there because the Deep One High Priest got his ritual done. The Star Spawn of Cthulhu materialised on top of the esoteric order of Dagon. Bar the locals and bar what deep ones were left, no one else is going to hang around for that. The Ghoul cult had their book. They were off, leaving the remnants of that unfortunate member of theirs behind. The monster hunters thought, well, okay, you know, we've managed to do some damage to the evil beings. They dragged their comrades out of the mud and got out. The halflings have got the gold chest. They disappear. The locals had a bit of a rough time of it, and the deep ones as well, but at the end of the day, Innsmouth has been secured again. Their foul rights can continue. They did lose the gold, of course, and they did lose a couple of deep ones in the process as well, but I'm sure they can spawn some more. Now, I mentioned sheep as well, because funnily enough, when I was getting all the figures ready for the game the day before, I found these little model sheep. I don't know where they came from. I don't know how long I've had them. So I thought, well, let's put some of those out just for fun. Really just as decoration initially. But then, of course, the Game Master cogs start whirring. So one of these sheep was close to the esoteric order of Dagon, just happily munching on the grass. One of the Ghoul cult members came up and Rachel said, what is this? Well, it's a sheep, you think? And she goes, okay, I'll prod it with my staff. The sheep kind of wavered and shimmered a little bit. Rachel, being made of bold stuff, said, I'm going to prod it again, harder this time. And that's when the sheep revealed itself as not actually a sheep, but a shoggoth. A shoggoth in disguise. So that, of course, manifested in its full Shoggoth glory and started attacking Rachel's character. He was very lucky, actually. He managed to slip away and disengage, so no damage done. But there's a moral to the story. Don't go around prodding sheep, especially if you're in Innsmouth. That was the end of the game then. I gave the halflings the gold. We had some nice gold coins. Chocolate, but you know, come on, it's chocolate. The halflings won the prize. They got the gold. Everyone else succeeded partly in their aims, but the most important thing was everyone had fun. I was really pleased that everyone said how much they enjoyed it. I was very pleased that, not having played it before, everyone picked up the rules very quickly. And once we got into the swing of things, it was pretty fast moving as well. And I mentioned those notes as well. The locals and the deep ones at the end displayed the messages that they've been passing back and forward. There's about 10 of them, I think. It was a very funny interaction between a deep one meeting Joe Sargent or someone, and one calling the other master. But, oh, are you the master? No, I thought I was. No, you're the master. I'm the deep one. Oh, but aren't the deep ones the masters? This was all going on as the rest of the action was happening. Exactly what the game is about. And the real nice comment I got at the end was, oh, we're going to be talking about this for a while. So they really got the spirit of the game and this idea of, yeah, you're having melee and all this sort of stuff, but at the same time, there's all this back and forth going on between the factions. And of course, having a good laugh when someone rolls a one and trips over their own trident or explodes a ghoul cultist into 5 million pieces. So a big thanks to all those who took part in that first ever live outing of We Want the Gold. I have got some of the books available now, but we are just going to go through this for a final check before we do our proper launch. Because as I've explained before, particularly on our self-publishing uploads, we've had 3 people proofread, and already, as always happens, when I first started going through this, page 2, there's a mistake. Quite a minor thing, but then we've noticed some other things that need correcting as well. So we're just going to get those final corrections done this week. Then we're going to roll out the proper launch in the next sort of week or so. We're going to have some more videos going up. And of course, this will be available on Amazon or direct from Innsmouth Gold. There we are then, a successful day all round. Thanks again to everyone who came and took part. We're already planning next year's event, of course. As I said, we're going to streamline the program a little, maybe look at introducing some more gaming. There was some other gaming going on. David and Mike of Chaosium were running some sessions. Bedford Gladiators had a tabletop display battle going on. Matt brought one of his Cthulhu board games. And next year we'll probably looking at doing some short RPG sessions as well. Okay, that's it for today then. Thanks again for watching. As always, if you haven't already, please do like, share and subscribe. And do check out that link below to the Innsmouth forum. Do hop over. I hope to see you there.